Hello and welcome back to another VMK in the game development series. In this VMK I'm going to show you how to implement the alpha channel back into the textures so that you can have textures that are partially transparent and partially opaque. So for instance, if you wanted to create a front face of a building or something and you wanted to make the windows transparent so you can see through them, or for instance maybe you wanted to create bars for a prison or something and you wanted to see between the bars but have that whole entire thing as one texture. Well, to implement that you need to have transparencies or alpha channels inside the texture, and currently we're not supporting that. Let's go take a look. What I've done here is actually let me go into the image here. I've taken the crate image, and where the bars were, I just filled them in with an alpha value here so that they're actually now transparent. So here you can see, you should be able to see right through all those bars. You won't be able to see the bars, you should be able to see right through the image. Back inside our code, I've made a few modifications. So inside scene initialize, at the top here, I've deleted everything and replaced it with the following code. So you might want to do the same. I have one texture, and the texture itself is called cratehole.tga. That's the one that I was just showing you. And I'm loading it with mapping enabled and quality level 4. I've set the material to be white, and it has no alpha channel. And then for geometry, I've changed my geometry so that I have a box that's size 0.8, 0.8, 0.8. And then we have our nodes. So we have our root node, which is back 2 units. We have our flat grid, and as a matter of fact, you can take this flat grid and put it up here with the other geometry. Okay, so we have our flat grid, and then we have our shape node, which takes that flat grid. And then we have our first transformation, which places one box 1 unit to the left, and it attaches the geometry to that guy, assigns the texture and assigns the material that I've defined up above. And then we have our second box, which is placed straight in front of us and assigning the same texture and the same material to it. And then at the bottom here I have a third transform, but I can actually delete this. I don't need him. Okay, so let's build this and take a look. Okay, so I have 2 boxes on the screen, and you notice that the places where the bars were are completely white. They're not transparent. So you may think, okay, well, I know that the alpha channel controls the transparencies, so let's go into the material and turn on the alpha channel. Let's see what this does. Well, that does turn our boxes transparent, but you'll notice now that the entire box is transparent, not just the spot where we've highlighted it on the texture. So we do have to make some modifications, and the modifications we have to do are inside of the texture class itself. So let's go open that up. First thing we need to do is go into the .h file and create a new variable. I'm going to make it public, so I'm just going to place it right here. And it's called bSolid. Now this variable is going to get set by our constructor. So inside of our constructor here, we're going to pass in one more parameter. Like so. And we now need to go to the constructor inside the CVV file and set the member variable. mbSolid equals bSolid. Okay. That's pretty much all we have to do inside the texture class. Now, however, we need to go and make some modifications to the node shape. So let's open this guy up under the render OpenGL. Okay, what we're going to do is we need to check to see if our object has a texture, so that's down here, and if it does have a texture, we need to check to see if this texture is solid or not. If it's solid, we don't need to do anything different, we'll just go and render everything the same way we're doing it now. However, if it's not solid, we need to do something very similar to what we did up here, where we enable the blending and we set this variable here to be false. This will make sure that any alpha values inside of the texture are getting applied. So right here, if we do have a texture, we're going to go and call GL enable to enable the textures. We're going to bind the texture, and then if our texture is not solid, so we check the solid value and then we not it. So if it's not solid, we go and call GL enable GL blend, and we also set the B object solid equal to false, same as what we did up here. Then we go and render the object, and we disable the textures, and down here, because we're using the same variable that we used before, we're going to disable the GL blend if the texture itself was turning it on. So now let's save that, and we need to go back into scene or the scene initialize, and wherever we had our texture, we need to pass in that fourth parameter. So now it's asking for the error handler, the mapping, the quality, and the last value be solid. If we set this to true and save this and build it, we should see absolutely no difference than what we had before. Because we've told, we need to go back into here and disable the alpha for the material. The material controls the alpha for the entire object. The solid part that we're working with right now is only controlling the alpha for the parts that are designated as solid or not solid on the texture. Okay, so we've set it to be solid, which means that there's no difference, we can't see through the object. But now if we go inside of the texture, and here we say our texture that we're using, this one here, create hole, is gonna not be solid, which means that there are some alpha values inside it which are not completely opaque. Now whenever we go and render, OpenGL will take care of those alpha channels for us and render our boxes with a hole through them. And as you can see there, we can now see through those white spots, and we can see everything that's behind it. Now remember though, one other thing, this the way that we're rendering things on the screen here still hasn't been corrected. So when I'm looking through the box on the right's hole, I can see the box on the left. However, when I switch here and I look through the box hole on the left, I can't see box on the right. And I haven't told you the answer to this yet, but it should be relatively obvious to you now if you've been playing around a little bit in OpenGL. I will come back to this problem with a solution. It's pretty simple solution, but it's not that simple to implement. The idea is simple, but the code itself is a little bit extensive. So I'm just going to leave it for now because it is a minor detail. It doesn't come up very often, but it can. Now I know that most of my textures are going to be solid, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get rid of this last parameter, and I'm going to default the textures constructor right here to be equal to true. This means that if I don't specify 4 parameters for the texture constructor, then the value for B solid will be true. If I do specify something, then it's going to use whatever I specified. So now we can see I can go and build this and run it just by passing in 3 parameters rather than 4. Okay. One other thing I wanted to mention as well is inside the material class. You remember that I've created all these different parameters for color, shininess, and so on. And I left out this parameter here be visible. I haven't implemented a way to use this yet, and I was thinking just the other day that I should really implement this because it is a useful feature. However, the location for this be visible isn't in a very useful location. So what I'm going to do for now is I'm going to delete this and allow you to control the visibility of objects a different way. And the way that we're going to handle it is going to be inside of a node rather than inside of a material. I'll come back to this a little bit later in a different video, but I just want you to go ahead and delete that parameter. You don't need it. We'll implement it in a different location. Okay, so if you're finding my videos helpful and you'd like to support my website, you can go to www.maticnose.com and click on any of the Google ads on the side, or you can also help me out by purchasing a membership, or if you have some ideas for videos, please send me your ideas and we can collaborate to make some videos together as well.